What's up, Wraeclast? It's Wabachot here with Hegemony,
What's up, guys?
and we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, from Warcries and Golems to Jewels and the new crafting tier mods.
All right, so I want to know your personal experiences with the Golem specifically. Like, you've been playing around in the beta, and I've been playing in the beta, and I think you've tried all three, right?
I've only tried the added chaos, not the added chaos. I've only tried the chaos golem and the flame golem.
So, like, what are your overall opinions of it? Like, how did it feel while you were leveling with it, and how did it feel in maps?
Well, the damage increase off the flame golem is nice, but I don't think it's too necessary. There are many times where the golem will go down, and I don't necessarily need it to be alive again. I'm not really getting any benefit from it because I already do plenty of damage. Now, the Chaos Golem is a little bit different because obviously it was tanky, and it seemed to do a much better job at holding aggro compared to that of the Flame Golem. People may disagree with me there, but that's just how it came across to me. But I didn't actually link the Golems with any support gems. I've only been using the Golems by himself just as an extra little layer. And I think one thing the Golems do is they make unset rings a little bit better, because golems are that good enough to not need support gems, but
Yeah, I could see that. I
yeah.
mean, Unset's definitely becoming more appealing. Does bring something new to the possible meta. I mean, from my experience, leveling with all three, I found, each one to have its advantages. I think I like the fire one the least. And when you're leveling up, you're kind of at the mercy of the the role of the golem, because there's going to be a strength based one, a dex based one, and an int based one. And while my favorite is actually the chaos golem, I'll tell you why in just a sec. But the stat requirements, and the way the kind of game shifts, I kind of feel like I don't really need the defenses going into Merciless and stuff like that. Even, going self-found. The fact that I have all the gems and supports off the vendors and stuff, that's just, it allows me to do a lot of cool things defensively so that I don't need something like a Golem. But when I get into the mapping scene, I definitely feel the need for it. But it's interesting that you say who would not run with one. I mean, there are a few situations where I can think of a reason that you don't want to have a Chaos Golem, mainly to deal with like maybe the possible Labyrinth boss, or not, the Orchard boss, where he does that huge phlegm ball. And I've seen some crazy rip videos posted on Reddit where the Golem will actually explode. He'll take the hit, even though the character dodged it. Your Golem would be a bystander, or it would be in the way, and that would cause you to die because the discharge would go off. So, so there's some crazy scenarios, and I guess in some chain maps with some rippy map mods, it can bite you in the ass.
That's actually what I was about to say, because the few times that I have been a little hesitant on running my golem was when I got a chain mod on a map, because obviously of how that works. And as a solo player, and you are largely a solo player yourself, the chain is something that we generally didn't have to worry about before. But now with golems being so prevalent, it is something that you do have to at least watch out for. But I don't know where chain is on the new map mods. I haven't seen it that much recently. I'm sure it's still there, but
Oh yeah, it's definitely
yeah, it's
there.
definitely still there. But okay, so we've talked about the chaos golem and the flame golem, and this is what actually you asked me if I've used all three. I haven't used the ice golem because I don't like the ice golem. The fact that it gives crit and accuracy, and accuracy doesn't benefit a spellcaster in any way, shape, or form. And crit, at least how I use crit, I generally use crit with spellcasters. So the Ice Golem loses a lot of its value. And it's just a little weird because the Chaos Golem benefits everyone equally. The Flame Golem benefits everyone equally, while the Ice Golem doesn't. So that's why I haven't used the Ice Golem.
So the problem I had with golems is not so much the buffs that I mean, pretty much they became a walking buff, because some of them just didn't function as like a pet or mercenary. Maybe I was just moving too fast, I don't know, but the flame golem seemed to be the most clunky because he could barely keep up with the actual fights. Like, he's always trailing behind me, and moving really slow. But the Chaos Golem was really nice because he had that slow spawning animation. I could actually start casting him in front of a boss and have him soak the bulk of the projectiles just because he, comes out of the ground. He's really wide and, he does a really good job at soaking the projectiles like the Wastepool. I think it's the Wastepool boss that does the Arctic Breath. And there's one that's in Reef, I believe. So you can use him as a pretty much a brick wall, and he tanks a lot of hits. Whereas the Flame Golem was kind of tanky. I didn't have to summon him as much, but I really didn't feel like he added to the combat. And it would be cool if we could add support gems or cast on or curse on hit with them. Then
I
they'd
agree with
be,
that for sure.
yeah, that would be way more useful, and they would feel like they're actually contributing to the combat other than being like a stat buff.
That brings me back to my point that GGG has made a very big effort in removing things that everyone uses. So although there are different golems, right? So you could argue that there's 3 different golems. We have the potential for a 4th, a lightning golem. But I feel like going from using reduced mana on auras because every single build used auras to now we have golems where every single build uses curse on hit with a golem, or they just use a golem with fortify, etc., etc. I just feel like it's kind of the same exact thing as reduced mana, and a change they recently did.
I mean, I like how they all have their kind of own personalities. Like if you take a look at the Viridian, or not the Viridian, the Ice Golem, he's very, very YOLO. He just charges in, he drops that Arctic breath or Arctic ground, and
Yeah, he
that
like
choke ground
cartwheels in is pretty cool.
Yeah, it slows the mobs. That's really, really nice and noticeable. He actually works really well with Fortify, but I mean, I've had to summon that Ice Golem with Fortify up so many times, so much that I actually put Blood Magic so that it wouldn't take, mana out of my resource, by having to respawn him all the time. But with the Chaos Golem, I just felt, man, he was solid. He was exactly what I needed him to do. And going forward into this meta, as your gear gets, good, you get those skill points and notables that make your character strong. I feel like I will just always use the Chaos Golem because 4% physical damage reduction kind of feels needed in the state of the beta and Act 4. And the amount of incoming damage that's coming in, I honestly just think I'll just ditch the Ice Golem. And that can be pretty scary. That if a lot of players are going to make this decision, just run Chaos Golem endgame. That kind of makes it less unique. I would like to see some HP buffs on the Ice Golem, but I kind of like how they work differently, and they have their own personalities. Chaos Golem's like nice, slow, tanky, doesn't do much damage. You don't need him to do it, but he feels like he's a part of the combat, and so does the Ice Golem. Flame Golem he feels like he's on a leash. He's like always behind me, not contributing much.
But he's only there for damage. He's
Yeah,
only
to give
there
you a
for the
damage
damage buff on the player, not for the damage that he does himself.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
he may be a she.
he seems the least interesting for me, and I've leveled them all up to level 20, and I've given him a fair shot because I wanted to give him a proper evaluation. Ice Golem is nice, but he just dies way too much.
Right. Well, another thing with this is just with the content of the Awakened being the way it is, people need more defense than they need damage. And I think that's going to put the Chaos Golem ahead of the other golems just naturally because 4% physical damage reduction is a free frenzy.
Joke.
It's a free endurance charge. That's what it is. But
As soon as you can get the Ent to do it, man, just fucking whip out the Chaos Golem. Just level him up on the side, whenever you can.
It would be
XP into it.
It would be kind of nice because I think this would fit thematically if the Ice Golem, instead of giving crit and accuracy, maybe if it gave crit and evasion, or crit and dodge, just a little bit, right? It could give you 200 evasion, not a lot of evasion, or it could give you 2% dodge. That would fit thematically with the way the Ice Golem acts, which I think we could all agree the Ice Golem looks cool as hell when it's just cartwheeling around and just shooting off these little projectiles of ice shards, whatever. I mean, it looks cool. The Flame Golem, I don't necessarily know what defensive buff it could give. I don't think it needs one because in itself, if you're going for max damage, go for max damage. Get the Flame Golem.
Yeah, I mean, what I think they could do to make the flame golem more interesting is just give him some movement speed, honestly, or cast speed or something. If he's gonna be there to be like the stronger AoE type thing who actually does on hits, and you can like link him up with Culling Strike. The problem is he just can't keep up. Get him into the fight, give him some movement speed, cast speed, whatever he needs. He can be the AoE golem that you can link up with Culling Strike or Rarity, Culling Strike. But I mean, the players are having to make really, really tough decisions. There's so many good gems out there and so many good Vol skills that it's going to be really, really hard to justify buffing up that Golem, that much more. Especially if they're going to use it on an unset, it's got to be good standalone. And honestly, I only feel like the Chaos Golem is in that position where he's good just as the single link.
Yeah, but the Flame Golem might be getting that Flame Dash, the one that we have
Oh,
coming out the Awakening. That would
that would
actually
be
be pretty
sweet.
cool. That might be something that they've kind of withheld because obviously
I
if we
hope
saw
so.
the Flame Golem using it, it would pique people's curiosity. We do have skills that are only available to mobs that aren't available to players, but it would definitely pique people's curiosity a little bit. This does go back to the point where you only really need to use these golems on unset rings. Someone has mentioned before that maybe we could put a jewel socket in a belt, a single one or a two link. I think that is another opportunity for it, but yeah, as of right now, the Chaos Golem, he's the best choice in my opinion, just because what he offers you, it synergizes well with the kit he brings, while the other ones are a little bit more. Because there are times that my Flame Golem dies, and it doesn't matter because I'm doing plenty of damage and I don't realize it. But when that Chaos Golem dies, I do recognize it and I want to get him back immediately.
Yeah, he's definitely a worthy party member.
Yeah,
I,
go.
I think adding dodge, like you said earlier, would be way too strong for the character, but I would be definitely inclined to say that the overall defense of the Ice Golem, for himself be enhanced. Maybe give him evasion, maybe give him spell dodge or something that fits with the Dex theme, like the evasive elusiveness. I think that'd be a really good way to make him tankier instead of just giving him raw HP.
Another new addition to the Awakening, other than golems, are the new war cries. Now, I don't know about you, but I actually haven't had a need for the war cries that much. I barely use Enduring Cry. I've been more prone to using Abyssal Cry because it's cool, but it's also unnecessary half the time. I've been using it on Poison Arrow, and there's almost little reason to use it on Poison Arrow because everything dies at the same time due to the nature of Poison Arrow. So maybe if you get one that dies a half second before because it's the one that took the Poison Arrow to the face, so it got that 1,000 damage from your Poison Arrow.
Hmm.
It only speeds it up so much, and Abyssal Cry having to be in close range, it kind of puts you in danger too much compared to how much faster it would improve your clear speed. I actually would say that it and overall would decrease your clear speed because instead of I am speaking about this in the context of Poison Arrow because that's where I think we've seen it used the most. In Poison Arrow, you shoot the arrow, chaos damage happens, you make a choice to either run past the group of mobs or run in an Abyssal Cry. So I would actually say it slows down your clear speed if you are really gun-ho on using it. But it does look cool when you open it, or when you open a strong box and you just Abyssal Cry in the center with your poison arrows already laid out and everything just blows up. That does look cool, but that's about it.
So the cool factor is more aesthetic than it is like functionally for you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So yeah, I had an experience with Abyssal Cry on a couple of characters with my Reaver and my RT Ice Crash Marauder, and I didn't like it much at all in PvE settings. I found it to be way too clunky. When I wanted to use it, it wasn't up or it wasn't off cooldown, and I almost felt like it was just another step or another prerequisite thing that I had to cast, just to get the optimal explosion or it was just I found it way too clunky in combat. That's one I mean, I feel like I gave it a fair chance I did, a bunch of high level maps, and it just wasn't that rewarding. I tried it with Infernal Blow, Sweep, and I felt like I could move way faster than the cooldown would actually, give me credit for.
Oh yeah, that's another thing about it. The cooldown is actually kind of high. You'd think it would be a little bit shorter than
Hmm.
it currently is. I believe it's 8 seconds now. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
But the cool thing is, you can run two war cries essentially, like have that one as bonus. So when you do know that there's going to be a huge AoE pack and you can get a cool explosion, you could use it. However, I feel like this game is way too limiting in the number of things that you can put on your action bar, so it makes it kind of like not worth it. If we had more keys that we could press or keybind, then I think it could deserve it, it would reserve a slot so you can use rallying cry or enduring cry as your main, and then you can use abyssal cry as a bonus. But the fact that we only have, 7 actions that we can put on our bar, it doesn't have the real estate that I would use it in an end game setting.
Well, do you just leave your auras on your bar after you cast them? Because I know I do. I
No.
That's what I do. Sometimes certain builds, one, I like the animation of an aura being cast, the way it
Oh
kind of
yeah.
highlights the skill on your skill bar.
It definitely looks cool, like the
But
icon and everything with swirling.
yeah, but I mean, I don't. After I cast an aura, I don't change it to another skill generally. I don't know if you do that. So, I mean, there might actually be more real estate on the skill bar than people would actually imagine because you can just, move a skill over an aura that you're casting.
Yeah, I mean, Chris has mentioned putting like a second alternate bar
Yeah, I
so
remember
that it
that.
would help alleviate, summoners and people that are aura supports or something. I personally have been, pestering GGG about can we get the move only action as a keybind so we can get at least one more spot, because I feel this game has got so many cool different skills and, active skills at that, and we just can't put it on our bars. I mean, we just don't have enough room, and I'm constantly having to weigh in what's worthy of a spot and what's not, and it's very frustrating. I actually never have any of my auras on my bar. I almost have a vol skill. I'll have a movement skill to get up and down rifts or cliffs, and then I'll have, my single target, my AOE, my war cry, all these additions, and then your golem and your curse, like all these additions, and no real estate on my bar is very
Right.
very frustrating.
Yeah, and this is kind of a good point, especially how it relates to war cries, because war cries have been released in a way that they almost feel like they would work in tandem.
Right.
And I've definitely thought about, when I was playing my poison arrow build and I was using abyssal cry, I was thinking, yeah, I could use abyssal cry, then I could use rallying cry, and I could use enduring cry, and cool. I thought that was really cool, but one, I'm lazy and poison arrow is fun and effective, so I don't really need to do that. But I could see wanting to use that on like a melee build, because
Hmm.
that's when you would benefit the most from abyssal cry, and enduring cry gives you increased damage, doesn't it?
And during cry, no, it
No,
gives
no,
you
I'm sorry.
regen.
Rallying
Rallying
cry
cry,
gives you
yeah, that
endurance.
is my favorite war cry of this. Well, it's only my favorite because it does other things in different map mods. If
Right.
you want to move over to rallying cry, we can.
No. This is perfect time to go
Yeah, I
for
mean,
it.
all
Yeah.
my characters have been using Rallying Cry recently or lately because I've been able to sustain my endurance charges via other means. Sometimes I use Restless Ward with Dodories. Other times I'm just using Dodories and with Flask Charge Generation, and it's proving to be very very strong. And you are responsible, for hitting that flask at the right time. Keeping a rhythm and making sure that you're not killing yourself seppuku style,
Right.
but I have found other means of sustaining endurance charges, and therefore rallying cry is a really good choice because it helps you so much with those map mods that reduce your regeneration or limit your resource. It giving you that mana boost, covers a lot of the negative side effects, whether it be enfeeble or physical damage reduction, which will reduce your leech rate. And if you rely on leech, then you may suffer some mana problems. And I love to run everything off mana. I mean, blood magic is great and all, but I feel like in order to push a character, you should strive to put your character on, auras and mana, and try to use that support gem slot with a more multiplier and be able to sustain it reliably.
Right. Yeah. Rallying Cry is actually something that I've been trying to. Well, okay, not trying. I've wanted to get a hold of it on my Poison Arrow build because sometimes I do run a little low on mana when I'm casting curses and everything, and it would make sense. And Abyssal Cry is useless, and I don't really need Enduring Cry because of the playstyle of Poison Arrow. But Rallying Cry is definitely, I think it's the best war cry that we have right now, because I think people are just going to be looking for other ways to automate or get endurance charges. As you mentioned, you used Odre's Elixir, which, again, really strong unique flask, especially right now with the meta of everything. Mm-hmm. And the new chests, the Restless Ward, and everything else that we have going on. But I also think that we're going to see people using Warlord's Mark a lot more just to get endurance charges. And you could get endurance charges other ways.
Yeah, endurance charge on melee stun.
You could, endurance charge on melee stun. There's even that staff passive node on the far left side of the tree. I forgot what it's called, but it gives you an endurance charge a chance to get endurance charge on a melee critical strike. So, Enduring Cry, not so useful.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, yeah, because it gives you regen too.
Yes,
that is
strong.
a really good buff for Enduring Cry. I mean, I get that, because Rallying Cry gives you mana regen and Enduring Cry gives you life regen. That's how they've kind of balanced it. But if you're already automating your endurance charges, like for you don't really need Enduring Cry, especially if you're using Restless Ward and Dodra's Elixir, because of what endurance charges do for you when you have Restless Ward equipped.
Battery. Yeah.
So you don't really need it. So Rallying Cry, I just think it's the best one of the three. Abyssal Cry looks cool, but is kind of pointless when it comes to it. It puts you in unnecessary danger. For maybe if they made the AoE of the explosion a little bit larger, because it would be cool to, you get that big group around a boss and you get the Abyssal Cry off. If you could see it considerably chunked more, or see it chunk considerably more than it currently does, then I could see Abyssal Cry being cool. But that's such a specific situation that, and for general purposes, is not something that you would even. There's no reason to have it on your bar for that. It's not like you're going to keep it in your stash, and when you get to your boss, like, well, I'm going to go back to town and equip this Abyssal Cry so I could kill this boss 5 seconds faster, because you lose that time just going to town and equipping it, yada yada yada. So, but compared to Golems, war cries are much better because you don't really need them, and not everyone's going to be using them. They're not such a no-brainer, but they're also very good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, well, let's talk about it in the themes of combat. Like, how does it actually play in, and how many decisions are you actually making? And I feel like the Rallying Cry, it has the most incentive. Like, when you see a big pack, you're like, oh, I should Rallying Cry here because I'm going to get a big damage boost. You actually feel it.
Right.
Whereas an Enduring Cry, as long as you have one mob around you, you're going to get that regen power. And, nowadays, people don't really run around with, having 6 or 7 or even 8 endurance charges available. So you're in a spot where Enduring Cry is kind of like, oh, if I have, a handful of mobs, I don't really have to be picky at my character's positioning, and I don't really have to milk this because there's not that super big benefit. I'm going to get enough charges. I'll probably max out with the first cast anyways. Rallying Cry, you're just like, give me that extra pack, give me these extra 3 mobs, and I'm going to get that damage power, especially if you have it on increased duration. It feels really, really good. But you have the Abyssal Cry, and it's like, it has so many restrictions. You actually have to make a kill within a reasonable amount of time for you to get that explosion. It has to be in the range. You have to not have it on cooldown. Can't conflict with other war cries. it would have to have something more for me to want to use it. Like something really, really significant. Like if you make a successful kill within a chaos explosion, then you're going to get flash charges or something.
Right.
You know?
Well, so and actually, that's a good idea. That would be an interesting mechanic. If you get a kill with this, you get more charges.
Right.
But I thought it was also weird that they kind of went with the chaos damage route on this.
Well, I see this Warcry being extremely good in PvP because of the minus reduction to movement speeds and stuff.
But that's
That is
per
like
target that it affects.
right, but you're still getting a movement speed reduction that can't be dispelled. So in PvP, it's like surrounded by movement. Your ability to chase, your ability to get out, and Abyssal Cry I can be seeing. I can see it being abused big time because there's no way to dispel the debuff.
Or in a capture the flag.
Yeah, 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 or CTF or anything like that. So while I guess it's okay that it's really cool in PvP setting and kind of lackluster in a PvE setting, and you can have the other two cries be much more significant, but the casts are fast enough that they are viable, and they are worthy of taking a spot on your bar. If you're not using a war cry right now, I highly, highly suggest you do so.
I mean, I think Abyssal Cry could do with a slight increase to cast speed, but that is kind of considering that it puts you in danger. One of the problems with going in a melee range with things, at least before the Awakening, was desync. Now we don't really have that problem so
Yeah,
much, so I could
that's a good point.
yeah, I could see why you don't need the cast time to be as high because you are slowing things and you're most likely not gonna be desynced. But my biggest problem with Abyssal Cry is the fact that it actually does not aid your clear speed in any way for the builds that I have played that use it. So, maybe I'm wrong. If somebody would like to tell me a build that they use where they actually use this effectively, let me know. I want to know because it's cool. It's cool as hell.
I mean, I can see it being very situational. It could definitely enhance your clear speed if the packs are dense, stationary. They're not avian wretches where they're running around like ants. If you're just going into packs of zombies, it could be very, very strong, especially when you're just trying to create a chain reaction. Maybe fracture maps, it'd be nice, but as far as like something that I would want to use all the time and it warrants a spot on my links, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not until I'm PvPing again.
Right. Yeah, and Rallying Cry definitely gets a thumbs up. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's definitely cool because what you said is correct. I mean, you see those mobs and you're like, I'm gonna get them, right? And
yeah,
you hit Rallying Cry, and it's kind of an exciting interaction. It's an exciting input for the player.
yeah.
So
As a gamer, you can feel the results
right, right.
instantly. You can look at that tooltip and be like, "Yeah, I got a good one." Whereas during Cry, you're like, "All right, I'm at max charges. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just continuing my charges."
Yeah, this is just another day in Enduring Cry Land.
Right. Except when you're using Zealot's Oath Eldritch Battery, and then every time you use it, it feels like you're hitting like a mini Vault Discipline. Then it feels really good.
Right.
Because you're converting that life regen into energy shield regen, which is your resource and also your shield, your mind over matter.
I forgot to say this when we were actually talking about golems. Whatever lightning golem we have come up, don't you think? I think this would be cool if the lightning golem actually gave you faster recharge of your energy shield.
Oh, I mean, you're talking about like a theoretical lightning golem?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could be kind of cool. It
Wait,
does go with
is
the
there one
blue
that's supposed to be
theme.
coming? I thought there was. I don't know.
I haven't read any literature on it though, but I mean,
Well,
maybe Rory talked about a possibility of a lightning golem, but they're not in a hurry to make it.
hopefully I just didn't open something up for them. Whatever. Anyway, okay,
Oh, wait. Going back to the ice golem, you know what I noticed is he's the one that has the energy shield, and
yeah.
I think the reason why I'm finding he dies so much is because I keep running maps with desecrated ground, and he keeps running around, and eventually he just dies from just running around.
Maybe.
I don't
Or
know why.
also that
That
he
doesn't
should
really
just
make
avoid more.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense why he's like an evasion. He's like a green gem, but yet he still has a significant ES pool.
Well, okay, so moving on. I want to talk about jewels because recently there's a post made by GGG saying they listed out all the jewels that are coming with the Awakening, all 60 of them. There's a lot. But I've got to say, After the removal of a lot of the jewels at the start of the beta, unique jewels feel extremely... Okay, not again. Not going to say extremely. Unique jewels feel underwhelming. I mean, it just... What's your take on this?
I'm in the same boat, man. They took away a lot of the fun factor in unique jewels, and I like them to be like unique, not so much of a stat here, stat there. That doesn't feel very good. Like what I would love to see on a unique jewel is something like bullying for Wanderers. Like, why can't we have a new unique jewel that brings back bullying for Wanderers? It belonged to them in the first place. I want to play a Wanderer with bullying again. And like removal of Zerphi's youth, that was so well designed because it like promoted that you corrupted your items, which people dread doing because of they're afraid of breaking it. And I guess they could lower the number or lower the duration or something, but things like that are just like off the wall, different type of feel for your character. As I'm like looking over some of these, it's like reduce mana, increase skill effect duration. All these numbers seem pretty small, almost insignificant. I mean, some people use the reduction gems just to squeeze out one more aura, but I mean, really, it doesn't feel that unique. It's just like one property that you just kind of need to squeeze. I did like some of the other stuff. They did one with the totems giving you an extra projectile.
Yeah, Rain of
That's
Splinters.
cool. Yeah, that feels unique. But a lot of the cool ones like Zerphi's was removed. Chill of Corruption I found to be probably overpowered. It was 100% chance, and any character that could crit shatter, was abusing the crap out of this. I know I was on every single character that could use it, but it seems like it was nerfed down to 80%. Maybe it has a variance now. I'm not sure, but on the website we can see it went from 100 to 80. I think that was warranted, but they also went back and revisited some of the vol skills and increased the costs, which is I feel like a double nerf, and I don't know if that was really warranted, but I felt like the combination of Chill of Corruption with Zerphi's in its current state was too powerful, but taking them out completely, I would just rather have their numbers adjusted.
Well, we still have Chill of Corruption. Zerpy's Youth is gone. Chill of
Yeah,
Corruption at 80%, it's, I don't know, in my opinion, Chill of Corruption at 80% is going to be the same at 100%. With how fast people clear maps or just get through content, it's going to be the same.
It's a double nerf though. It's the actual Vol skills like Vol Stormcall, which is the one I was abusing the most. It getting a significant Vol Soul requirement now, and the Chill of Corruption, I mean, it's going to be used a lot less.
I mean, it did probably become a little too easy for people to get
right
Vol Souls, and so that just kind of compounded that problem. So
right.
This is probably... Using Chill of Corruption is probably going to be equivalent to what it's like currently on live for getting Val Souls. But okay, so another reason why I'm actually kind of why the unique jewels are underwhelming to me, other than the ones you mentioned, Intuitive Leap when it was announced was such an interesting jewel, right? Because it's like, oh wow, you could place this and you could allocate a passive elsewhere. But the way it's actually worked out is that there are very few places on the tree where it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
because not you have to put, say you were to put it over on the far side of the tree in between Acrobatics and Deadly Draw. There's the 2 projectile damage nodes that give you 4% and then a jewel socket. If you were to put Intuitive Leap in there, you would be able to reach the dodge passive. Phase Acro. Yeah. No, you can't. You won't reach Phase Acro.
Yeah.
But you could reach the other ones, but you're spending those points anyway. So it's kind of like the same thing, and you're not really getting that much benefit out of the 2 points before. I could see if those 2 points before were 10, 12% projectile damage. But the point that I'm getting at is Intuitive Leap doesn't save you very many points in the long run, especially most of the positions of the jewel sockets on the tree. And Intuitive Leap was one of the ones that they pushed out with the Awakening announcement. And that, I feel like this gem, if it just had a larger radius, I wouldn't feel that unique gems are so underwhelming right now, because it would be a standout unique gem, or it
Well,
would be a standout unique jewel, and we
yeah,
just don't have them.
I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. I definitely see where you're getting at. When I saw intuitively, when I heard about it, my mind exploded. But when I practically like went in and I was using a chopstick and I was just putting it on my monitor to see the potential of, what I could pick up, and I was literally just doing that for hours
Way to
upon each.
stereotype, Edgy.
Well, chopstick is what I had laying around. But yeah, just going through the tree, I was like, wow, this is pretty underwhelming. Like it was almost, and there was a lot of nodes where it would hit a notable, but I would be unsure if it actually would qualify. I don't think the solution necessarily is increase the radius. I think the solution is just to, shorten the gaps, because it only needs like 1 or 2 millimeters on the tree for it to be like worth it. If you can get two notables off of it, then it most definitely could be worth it. I mean, we're comparing against, rare jewels that can go insane. And I know that they want to steer the direction where, you're incentivized to craft your own jewel and make it powerful for your character, and they want rares and things that are handcrafted to be, better, but we still want to, have some creativity with unique mechanics that don't exist in the game. And, theory crafting builds, that's half the fun. And I feel like there's just 4 or 5 spots where you're just in range, almost in range of hitting that notable, almost making intuitively worth it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of dropped the ball there. But I don't want them to increase the radius. I just want them just to adjust the tree, tweak it, with their artists and their programmers, get something more in range.
Off the top of my head, I could actually only think of a couple spots on the tree where you would want to put Intuitive Leap, and it's only to save you 2 or 3 points, because the reasons why it would work in those spots is because of the optimal pathing you would be taking anyway. Above the northernmost power charge is the node that gives you percent spell damage per power charge. So if you go through that part and you go through the jewel socket, you then come down and grab the power charge instead of going the other way around to the 18%, which it's kind of hard to grab the 18% increased duration of charges. That's one change that they added with the Awakening, where we have more of those in between the charges now. So it's nice to go the opposite way when you can get 4% spell damage per power charge, or the 0.2% life regen per endurance charge, or the 4% invasion per frenzy charge. It's nice when you come through the way that would give you that instead of the duration. That location, and then the location over by the 0.2% life regen passive tree over in Marauder, those are the only jewel socket locations where using Intuitive Leap would actually, if you were to get the notables in those areas, would be, cost effective. And that's that. We agree on that. As much as I don't want to sit here and just agree on things about Path of Exile with you, I want to have a good discussion.
Well, I mean, Intuitive Leap is an investment in itself, just to get to
Right.
through the clunky stat nodes, and then, park the actual jewel socket, and then the jewel socket doesn't actually have stats itself. So
Right.
I feel like if you're not getting 3 notables out of it, then it's already not worth it. Like you're
Three
talking
notables
about
is kind of a lot, though.
well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, there's a drawback where you can't. I mean, you still have to spend the point to get to the notable,
Yeah.
right? And you're spending the jewel socket that has no stats, and then
Yeah.
you're taking like a clunky 10 stat node that you probably aren't taking anyways. But I
But
feel like the northernmost, jewel socket node, it would be nice to get Alchemist, Mind Barrier, the Power Charge, and maybe Deep Thoughts, something like that, or get Blast Radius, maybe not Deep Thoughts, maybe Annihilation or something, or the what's it called, the northeastern jewel socket next to Essence Surge between Eldritch Battery and CI, being able to pick up those energy shield nodes. They could easily just swing that little circle or cluster to the left and allow low life characters to invest into 4 mana nodes and a jewel socket, and then pick up Infused Shield and those 2 8s and make it, a nice low life character.
Right.
Simple things that they could just tilt in a direction and just make intuitive leap much more interesting. And keep in mind, you cannot connect off these nodes, so you
Yeah.
can't just continue your tree and start traversing it, much at a much quicker rate.
You know what would be cool though? If we had jewel sockets that were close enough where you could intuitive leap off of intuitive leap off of intuitive leap. But obviously the radius is way too small. Well, yeah, so but there's obviously other unique jewels. Some of the ones that I think they're actually really good. I think anatomical knowledge, the cobalt jewel that gives you 7% increased max life and 1 to maximum life per 3 intelligence. I think that's actually a really strong jewel. And but again, just the unique jewels for the most part are underwhelming. And this kind of leads into, I know what you and I both want to talk about. Rare jewels are where it's at because
can we go back? There's like one more thing I wanted to talk about. All right, so I kind of wanted to go over the same concept that you talked about, where they're underwhelming now, but they weren't as underwhelming when it started. And instead of removing the gems, I kind of wonder why they didn't just change it numerically. Like if they felt something was too powerful, why didn't they just lower it? Because some of the cooler ones were just simply removed from the game.
Right, like Zerphi's Youth. I thought the same thing. Why couldn't they just reduce the effectiveness of Soul Eater on a player?
Right, and then the one that did unarmed range, it gave you +4, which was ridiculous. But why didn't they just make it +2 or something? Something that had a numerical change. Why did they? I don't know. It just seems like they started out really interesting and possibly broken, but that's why we have a balancing.
Right.
Why couldn't it just be,
I mean, I was
down?
actually kind of surprised when Zerphi's Youth. I'm using Zerphi's Youth as examples. I think this is the most clear example of something that was insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when Zerphi's Youth was starting to be used on the beta and people really starting to play with it, instead of being like, this needs to be toned down, there are many people that are just like, remove it. Just remove this. This is too much. And I'm sure using it was fun.
Yeah, using it was fun, but it wasn't like people kind of just saw it as black and white. Oh my God, what you could possibly achieve. But in reality, in practice, you cannot rely on Zerphi's Youth to be up and be your sole defense.
Yeah.
While it's good in certain situations where you're able to continue and fight at a very fast pace, like it's not it's a bonus. And I think it was designed in a very, very cool way, but it also took a lot of responsibility. You had to actually pay attention to the timer. You had to make kills while you procced it. Otherwise, it would have no benefit. You could pop Zerfies, or you could pop your soul skill, and there's nothing around, and you're not getting anything out of it.
Right.
And you're making very concise decisions as a gamer. When is the optimal time to use it? I mean, I was using it a lot in high-end maps, and I honestly found so many situations where, it got too sketchy, too close. I was trying to face tank like a Beyond guy, and my Zerfius was going down, and I had to pull out because, I didn't want to be greedy and die.
Right. Well, okay.
Cool.
And one of the requirements on the Zerphi's Youth was you had to have 5 corrupted items.
Yes.
And so, although I think 5 corrupted items is a little too low, I think 7 may have been a little bit more appropriate. And so, I mean, how I would have gone about it, if I was Rory or whoever is, designing and implementing and
it's actually Nick.
Nick. Okay, so if I was Nick, and I only knew what I knew now, he obviously knows more than me, but I would maybe look at changing Zerphi's Youth to 7 corrupted items and 25% reduced effectiveness. Because
what do you mean by 25% reduce? There's no number. It's just Soul Eater. So would you reduce the duration?
No. I mean 25% effectiveness of Soul Eater on the player. So I know it's just a number, but the values that are given to monsters with Soul Eater, I think should just be reduced by 25% to the player, because it gave you 4 or 5% physical reduction. I believe it gave you 5.
Yes, 5.
It gave you 5, so you would cap out, right?
Right.
So
right. But you'd have to kill stuff to cap out.
Right, you have to kill stuff to cap out. So No, so I thought it was 4. So instead of being 25%, it'd be 20%. So instead of each kill, you get 4% damage reduction, 4% resist, 4%, every single buff that you got out of it, or 5. Sorry, I keep doing that. 5. You should have only got 1%.
I guess I could go with that, but I really like your idea of increasing the number of corrupted items required because people that like to make and push builds to the limit, GGG, they love seeing, those that hard work, and they love seeing your tears. Honestly,
Right.
you push it to the limit. You go Las Vegas, you roll the dice, and there's a good chance that you'll just ruin such an awesome or beautiful item. Maybe we can just go as far as just leave it as it is and require every single slot that you have to be corrupted, and that would be a very
Yeah.
interesting way to play. I mean, good game design plays off your emotions. You get the highs and you get the lows, and as long as you're feeling that and there's like that risk and that sensation, that's good game design, honestly.
Right.
And
Well, and another thing about the corrupted items, Project PT had made a point that at 5 corrupted items, even if they were trashed items, they were just items that you absolutely ruined and yada yada yada. Zerphi's Youth was still powerful enough to overcome the deficit of losing that item. So if you
yeah, I'm not so sure about that
well,
because
why though? Because it gave you damage, it gave you resist, and it outside of changing the links that you have, that's when it would corrupt an item. I think in regards to Zerphi's Youth would actually make that item no longer usable. But if you have a 6-link chest, a 6-link shavs, for example, and you corrupt it, shavs may not be a good example, but whatever. Okay, we'll go to
it shouldn't be a unique. I mean,
it should be. It should be unique, but Shav's not a good example because you probably need the chaos damage to energy shield aspect of it. But let's just say you 6-link a coil and you corrupt it. If you retain the 6-link on that coil and you run Zerphi's Youth, you get the damage reduction that you would have got from the coil. So
Wait, what are you saying? Are you saying if the lightning coil bricks?
it's a lightning coil bricks, but it's still a 6-link.
That's super, super rare.
I
Where
know it's
actually-
rare, but that's what I understand that it's rare, but we're talking about the possibility of how potentially powerful Zerphi's Youth, well, not potentially, how powerful it was, and it's because if you did brick it in that way and still got a 6-link, or like the 6-link chests that you get out of corrupted
We're
block
missing
boxes.
so many variables here.
There are a lot of variables, and that's exactly why there are a couple variables that I think should be changed. Reducing the effectiveness of it was one of them, and just increasing the amount of items that needed to be corrupted.
Okay, but I mean, like, hear me out. Like, you when you corrupt something, like we're talking about, in a state that Path of Exile is with its endgame mapping and its damage. You can't just go in there with rares, just because they're corrupted and have random stats and expect to be tanky just because you're running Zervies. You have to have synergistic mods
Right.
to actually make these kills on high HP targets with
Yeah, but
scary mods.
But I'm more referring to the fact that you might, as long as you keep the items that you really need to have like a base that allows you to get Zerfies going, the other items can be absolutely bricked, as long as they're corrupted.
I'll agree to disagree on
Yeah,
that one.
that's fine. Obviously, that's fine.
Okay.
The Zerfi's Youth was obviously too strong in its form. It's been removed. We might see it again. In fact, when I read the wording of it, I remember asking you, I read it as you can no longer corrupt this gem. So I thought, does that mean you could get this gem from a corrupted strongbox? That's what I actually immediately thought. I thought
Right.
Zerfi's was still in the game because of the way it was worded. I may have read it wrong, but
Well, from my experience, it's worth noting that on average, in a good situation, I would only get the amount of, actually hitting the cap with the last 3 or 4 seconds of the duration. So it's not like as soon as I pop my Vol skill, I'm already banging, I'm
Right.
a massive tank. I had to build up to it, and then I only had a few seconds off of that to actually, But the continuation thing is a problem, and that was mainly stemmed from Vol Storm Call being so cheap and Chill of Corruption being so strong.
yeah.
But I mean, I still think that it could be brought back into the game. I know a lot of people are going to hate on me for saying this, but it could be brought in the game. But increase the requirements, make it where you have to vault all your gear, and it'll be something that you can aspire to. And there's so many drawbacks for with vaulting all your gear. The stress of having to replace something, or if you wanted to change your colors, then you're all of a sudden you're going to need Verici 8 or have to buy another one. And
Right.
the finesse it takes to get these items that synergize and they're usable and it'll allow you to clear fast and still be tanky at the same time is a good challenge that this game needs. But I mean, that was probably a minority opinion, but
Well, okay, so there is actually one other aspect of this that I don't think we really talked about with Zerphi's Youth, and I want to move on past Zerphi's Youth because we could probably talk about it
Okay.
all day. But
Alright.
another thing about Zerphi's Youth was the fact that it was so strong that I'm willing to bet that players didn't like it. Okay, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it like that. Sorry, I'm gonna cut this. What's the time?
that's fine. I kind of know what you're going with there. You're cornering yourself into some hate speech.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there is one aspect of Zerphi's Youth that we haven't really touched on, and it's overlooked a little bit. And I want to move on from Zerphi's Youth because obviously there's like a lot that could go on. There's a lot of conversation that could be talked about Zerphi's Youth because it was fun and it was great in the beta. But one problem that I think with Zerphi's Youth was going to have, and I don't know how much this affects GGG's effect or how much it affects their decisions on what's going to be in the game and what's not going to be in the game. But I see Zerphi's Youth as being a ridiculously expensive and hard to attain jewel compared to other ones. And people may just sell them instead of use them because their value is so high compared to what they give you. And like I said, I don't know. That might be like kind of like a tangent. I might be completely wrong with that, but and it's in the state of power that it was in, I don't know what they traded for at first, and I don't know what they ended up being on the beta.
They were really rare, yeah.
But
I know.
I'd imagine that they would be extremely, extremely expensive in the challenge leagues. And yeah, actually, that might be another thing too. That may have really trivialized people getting 100, which is something you had mentioned you were kind of not for.
Well, I just wanted to see an exciting race, and I wanted to see it
Right.
over a long period of time, not just 1 week.
And Zerphi's Youth might actually absolutely kind of undo that, right? Because you were saying in the last podcast that you
Not
want
with the correct changes, I don't think.
with the correct changes, but in the state that it was in, you wanted to see people like juking and jiving. These were your words. You want to see people juking and jiving and getting 100 and it being exciting. But Zerphi's Youth gave you so much damage and so much defenses in that state that they didn't really have to.
Another way to look at it is, hear me out on this one, like you have Zerfies, you feel like a god, but there's still they're very big windows of vulnerability. Like that's where that's what I love about it. It's like you feel so comfortable, driving this vehicle, and all of a sudden it's just gonna, at any given moment it can break down on you and not do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people
Well, not
will
at
die.
any given moment. When the buff's ending.
Well, people get cocky. They're like, "Oh yeah, I got sold here. I'm good here." And then all of a sudden, they're not paying attention to the timer, and by one or split second, they take something that they thought that they could take, and they just die.
Yeah.
Or that's the cockiness that kind of like it makes a player get complacent when you should still be playing. You should still have like a high level of gameplay and focus.
Right. Yeah, well, obviously, again, there's a lot to talk about with Zerphi's Youth.
I mean, bottom line is I feel like it could kill people just as much as it saves people because of the complacency.
True. Let's just go ahead and end that. Put that away. Maybe we'll bring it up if it's ever reintroduced to the game. So outside of the unique jewels, rare jewels to me is going to be where it's at in the Awakening, because they could roll some amazing mods. They could roll mods for every single build. That's one of the nice things about rare jewels. You have builds that you don't need you don't need this and that, but you could just benefit from more life. And actually, I think that's actually something that's a little underexplored with jewels, is how you could use them to get life. Because I know a lot of people, when they make their passive tree, especially hardcore players, but standard players do this also, obviously. But when they make their build, they have that goal of the life that they want to use, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, well, I want 170% increased maximum life on my tree. And I feel like some people forget that you could get 6% on a magic jewel. And if you're right next to the node, especially, if you're starting Scion, or if you're taking those highways in between all the classes, because it's on every single one, 1 point could net you 6% increased maximum life and another mod. So you could get 6% increased maximum life and 3 other mods, and that just makes the value so high. And I think that's something that's been a little underexplored by the community, because we are so focused on getting damage. We are so focused on getting defenses outside of life that we are overlooking life,
So what I hear you saying is the Scion being overlooked?
No, I don't mean Scion at all. Actually, I just mean the highways in between, because Scion.
That is the Scion.
No,
Scion has access to most jewels.
No,
so
but
maybe she's underrated.
She does have access to most jewels because of those starting passive areas. Mm-hmm. But most players go down into that highway that leads down to the center Scion to grab certain things. Mm-hmm. Like a totem user, Templar or Witch, they're probably going to be coming down over there to grab Shaman's Dominion, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of melee characters, Duelist or Marauder, are probably going up to the Scion Life Wheel or Berserking. Rangers are probably be going to Duelist to get Fury Bolts, and they're probably going to be going up to grab that Evasion or Sentinel. Those passives in that area of the tree, those jewel sockets, I think they're the most valuable jewel sockets on the passive tree, just because they are 1 point. They're one and done for 1 point, while other ones are 2 or 3.
What do you mean by 1 point? I'm kind of confused.
Because
there.
If you're going through that route on the passive tree, if that's your optimal pathing, you just have to put that 1 point there, and you get that jewel socket, and it gives you a lot of stats for a rare jewel.
I see what you're saying. I think that goes in, hand in hand with the whole Scion discussion, because when you look at her starting wheels, like all the values are very, very underwhelming. The way it kind of speaks to me as a game design, where you're looking at this character and be like, man, do I want to rough it out? In the long run, I'll have access to jewels, but what does that mean for my character? Later down the road, it means I'm going to have to invest more currency into finding these jewels and making my character more powerful. Do I want to be weak early on for the greater good later, in the end game? A lot of players and enthusiasts, I love that design, that the character, the Scion, goes from very, very underwhelming to possibly one of the greatest and, best, because of the jewel system and the access to easy access to jewels. In that whole star, she has 1 jewel off of each wing, in addition to all the ones that are on the highways.
Yeah, the ones that I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So Scion being so weak early on, and players in for the long haul, it's a nice character decision that you have to make. Do you want an easier leveling experience? Not have to worry so much about currency to fill these jewels with something that'll be comparable or high valued. But I mean, that's just some Scion love that I think was long overdue, and it's a good character decision and good game design that
right.
The Scion now has that option.
Yeah, and that's kind of how Scions were at first, right? Like, although they might not, their starting nodes were really strong at first, and it was just better to get them. But once that change was made, the only reason why you would go Scion was for like an optimal build. Sometimes. So it goes in line with the Scion having access to those jewels. So yeah, I mean, they do have access to a lot of jewels, but even then, those starting nodes still aren't that good.
Yeah, but I think the jewels heavily outweigh, the lack of stat value or efficiency in it. Like, a lot of people have done the math where it's just so much that you can
Value.
get. Yeah, but I mean, it takes a lot of work. It takes dedication. You actually have to commit if you want to make a Scion better than something else, in the end game. It's definitely doable, and it's something to aspire to do. Or you could just take the easier route and have a cheaper leveling experience, possibly an easier one, and go, your typical any other class.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I've been playing Scion. My character's name is Scion in the beta. So,
Nice.
yeah, I mean, I agree. They have some having access to those jewels make them much more appealing. So, okay, so while we're talking about rare jewels and Scion, et cetera, but another nice thing about rare jewels is the fact, and this is something that I've brought up before, that they're only 4 properties. Since they're only 4 properties, that makes it really easy to alteration spam, get something good, regal. And, one of the things that kind of hurt crafting a little bit, well, at least hurts crafting to me, is when you're crafting a Val Regalia, you alteration spam it, you regal it, and at that point which you regal, I mean, it's sellable at the alteration spam point. You regal it, it's also sellable, but then crafting it further costs you more and more. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to exalt it, you have to eternal
Yeah.
it.
I mean, you're going for 6 properties and
Right.
stuff.
So the fact that that it's only 4 properties, it's a little bit easier. And this is something I know I've said before. It's a lot easier to, YOLO exalt a jewel because you have this 3 property jewel that is just so money, and you're like, whatever. Like this thing is so good. And on top of that, they made it to where the mods on jewels have a higher chance of rolling mods that are similar. You won't have dual wields and then a staff mod on there too. So you don't have to worry about that nearly as much. And I think that's one of the strengths of rare jewels.
Yeah, you only have to worry about getting trapped because everybody can use traps, and that's one annoying thing that I've been noticing when I'm like, yeah, I got bow, but then you can get trapped. Everything can get trapped, and you're just like, why?
Right.
Even the on hits come with trap too, so I mean, they're doing the right thing. I don't think trap should be taken out of the mix. It definitely spices the crafting and the frustrations.
Yeah, because you have to have failures, right?
Yeah, you have to have failures.
Yeah, you have to have failures.
Can't just be successful
Because if it was, then there'd be no reason to internal it. I wonder if anyone has internal to a jewel.
Oh, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think there are any mods that are currently so rare. I've been using a lot of alterations in the beta. That's one of the beautiful things, that I'm not actually spending currency, but I'm just testing, and for the most part, whatever you want, you can get within a handful of rolls. So I don't see people eternaling it unless it's like game breaking, stars aligning type thing. I definitely see people divining a lot of them. Yeah, that's going to be a huge thing.
It actually looks like we're out of time for this episode. We'll go ahead and go into the new crafting tier mods on our next episode, so be on the lookout for that. Hedgie, would you like to say anything, share anything with everyone before this ends?
No, man, I'm having so much fun talking about the game. I want to thank you for just dishing it out with me.
Yeah, no, not a problem. I mean, I try. I do what I can. And thank you guys very much for all the feedback. We do really appreciate it. I got a lot of really good feedback from you guys. Keep it coming. If you have any comments about the episode, let me know. Tell me what you don't agree with us. I'm more than happy to hear it. And I eventually will get to responding to you guys. I do promise that. Hegemony and I do have a lot to talk about with the beta ending up very soon, so check back for a lot of the updates that we have coming up. Again, there's a lot of stuff to discuss. We've kind of just scratched the surface of it. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time on What's Up, Wraeclast.
See you next episode.